Jimmy, thank you so much for talking to me about all of this this work that you and Virginia did together. I have such a curiosity about the knowledge that Virginia had, the knowledge that Virginia and you wrote down, and then what the finished product was. How much was edited out? Like, how many names of perpetrators were actually edited out for myriad reasons?
Well, you know, the purpose of her book was never to write a list of names. The list of names exists. It exists in the FBI files. It exists in the Epstein files, as we now call them. She had named many names in depositions already that have been made public. There are 4 different document dumps that there are many, many names in those. The goal of the book was to take you inside the experience of a 16-year-old girl who is swept into this world of predation. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein trafficking these girls and young women to their friends. And it's Virginia's experience from being abused very terribly in her young life, escaping, becoming a mom and a wife, and then becoming an advocate for others. So obviously, names are of interest to people. Any victim has to weigh the back and forth of the cost and the payoff of naming a name to try to hold your abusers to account, and then what comes with that. So loss of privacy, loss of safety. In Virginia's case, she had a death threat that the FBI called and told her was verified. You know, she had people breaking into her house. So this wasn't a paranoia on her part. She knew that there were dangers. And so with every different scene in the book, I know all the names that are there, but every different scene she had to make a decision about whether or not she was going to rename or name these people. And the book is the result of those decisions that she made.
Well, and I would assume anybody who's associated with the book, you're connected, the publishers, everybody is liable if these extraordinarily wealthy and powerful people decide to come after you. So I would have assumed it was a team effort to say, can't name this one, can't name this one, or it's a world of hurt for everybody involved.
Well, I mean, any book like this, and you know this, you know, of course, you fact check. We interrogated it. I mean, it's part of the reason that she hired me. I've been a journalist for 30 plus years. I know how to investigate things. So this was not. I think there's a mystery surrounding a ghostwriter collaboration arrangement. This was not just me turning on my tape recorder and having her speak into it and then transcribing it and then cleaning it up a little bit and putting it into a book form. It involved a lot of extra reporting around her, a lot of documentation from, as I said, court records. I've read all of the depositions, not just hers, but everyone's in the case that have been made public. We talked to a lot of people around her who knew her contemporaneously during the Epstein and Maxwell abuse. Et cetera. That's not the full summary of our fact checking and our carefulness, but we knew, and she knew all along, that she was a target. If she raised her hand, she was going to get potentially slammed, and everything needed to be buttoned up, and we worked very hard to make that happen.
The hair stood up on my neck when you said the tapes, because I realized that's how you work. When you're working with someone as a co-writer or a ghostwriter, you tape those long interviews, and then you work with the material, which means there's tapes that have names. Will we ever hear those tapes? Will we ever hear those names? Is it a matter of waiting for certain people to die because you can't defame someone who's dead?
I think the question, the place to aim that question is towards the Department of Justice. You know, yes, I know who the names are. Virginia knows who the names are. But so does the FBI and so does the Department of Justice. That's why there's such a clamoring right now for the Epstein files to be released. It's not just Virginia who's come forward. It's many brave women came forward and talked to investigators. There's a scene in the book where they are all in a room being thanked by members of the Department of Justice for coming forward and asking for their help further. And that was years ago. So these files and this investigation has been compiled over many years, and it exists. So the idea that somehow the impetus should be on me or the book or Virginia herself or any of the other victims to continue on repeat, on repeat, on repeat to say these names, endangering themselves when they do, why don't you just go to the reports where they've already said? And so I mean, I'm not trying to play a game of cat and mouse here. Again, the book was not intended to just be a book of lists. It was just extended to.
No, and I understand. I fully understand. I think the point I'm trying to make is that the women who came to Capitol Hill to ask, for the love of God, we are victims of this monster, release the files, shed light, put sunshine on it. It is time for people to know who did this to us. And yet, it's not happening. And those women themselves said, if you don't do it, we will compile the list, which I feel Virginia's book could be. And that's why I ask these questions, not to suggest you're part of a cat and mouse game. I'm actually so curious to see, is there a possibility that if we never get satisfaction from this government, might we get satisfaction from Virginia Giuffre's raw manuscript or her tapes where she does fully name those names with the narratives that are attached to them?
Well, I would say, this is her book. Again, I'm a ghostwriter. I am typically invisible. She's supposed to be the one here talking to you, and I wish with all of my heart that she were doing that. But a writer, a memoirist gets to make the decisions about what they want to include. And she made those decisions before she died, and I'm going to honor them. I'm not going to go beyond her scope. But again, I would say I think the questions you're asking are better aimed at the administration. That Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. It was one of the main planks because he knew it mattered so much to his MAGA base. And this is not a partisan issue. People care about this not just in America, Democrat and Republican. They care about it around the world. Here's why. Because what's happened is people of wealth and import, people who have power and money, have been allowed to treat people who have no money terribly. And people are sick of it in a very broad way. And so it's not a matter of this name or that name, or could you deduce who the people are who are in the book? It's about culturally, societally, us stepping forward and calling on law enforcement to do its job. I mean, I think that's really,
and that sure has failed these victims. I mean, without question of a doubt, anyone who's read into this case, starting from the Florida cases all the way up to the federal government, that these victims have been failed over 20 years. My question to you about the process, it's so specific that and I think a lot of people will be surprised at this. I was surprised to see Virginia come out in support of President Trump as much as she did. A lot of people think he's not releasing the files because he's in them. And she's saying, at least when it comes to her, he's not. He wasn't involved at all. I think that's a big surprise to a lot of people. Is that the reaction you're getting, that Trump is cleared as far as Virginia's concerned?
I mean, when we announced the book, we made it clear that Trump was not implicated. Again, as you point out, Virginia was in the Epstein-Maxwell orbit for about 24 months, a little longer. And so she only knows about that period. But in that period, she didn't see Trump in any sort of compromising position. She didn't see him abuse anyone. And in fact, remember, she is procured by Ghislaine Maxwell. She is approached by this posh British woman with a beautiful outfit, beautiful handbag at Mar-a-Lago Spa, where she is working as a $9 an hour towel girl in the Mar-a-Lago Club, which obviously Trump still owns. So she knew Donald Trump because she worked there. She thought she was honored to work there. It was a beautiful place. And she met him several times because her father also worked there and introduced him to her. He said, "Do you babysit?" She said yes. He gave her, he had her babysit for some of her friends when they visited the club. So she had fond memories of him from her teenagehood. And then I was there in Australia with her in October, right before the presidential election. And here was this former president running for president again, partly on the plank that he was going to release the Epstein files. And she felt very validated by that. You know, remember, these women have been called liars, sluts, whores for a long time, for many years since they've come forward. And they shouldn't be believed. They shouldn't be believed. And here was a man, a former president, somebody who she hoped would be president again, saying, I'm validating you. This is wrong. These files should be public. We should make them public. So she was absolutely, you know, galvanized by that. She felt very, very happy about it and hoped that he would win, and he did.
So, Amy, I have everybody has a theory. Why has neither side of the aisle, when in the White House, released these files? Why has it been a bipartisan blocking of the sunlight on Epstein's case? And I've always theorized that there are very expensive, or they're very powerful fundraising sources who might be part of the problem. Naming them means the spigot gets cut off both for Republicans and Democrats. Am I wrong in thinking that, with the knowledge that you have?
I mean, I can only speculate, because really what you're asking me to do is get inside the mind of the Trump administration. I don't know what those conversations are, and I'm not a political reporter. I don't have forcing them.
And the Democrats. It's been an equal opportunity effort to keep those files blocked. So that's why I'm asking, do you think these are the money men that give to these administrations, that they give to the Democrats, they give to the Republicans, and to name them would cut those spigots off? Do you think that's part of the problem? Both administrations have said no?
I have wondered the same thing. I don't know what the hesitation has been. I think the reason that I'm focusing particularly on the Republican administration is because that's the one in power right now, and the one that campaigned on the back of trying to release them. So, but you're right. Earlier administrations, Democratic administrations, could have done so. Now, of course, we are not unsophisticated. We understand that releasing an investigative file is a complicated undertaking, but there are ways to do it. I mean, I have the investigative file of the original Epstein investigation in 2006, 7, 8, when he was first slapped on the wrist for procuring a prostitute, which is what they ultimately gave him a very short and unusual prison sentence for. But that has been released. So there are ways to do it. You redact names that are the victims, particularly, who you need to protect, who've come forward in confidence and didn't want to go public. But so I get that it's not just a matter of just handing over the file cabinet to the media. I get that that's complicated, but there are ways to do it. And I think what people are really saying when they say, I want the Epstein files released, is they want to know who was abusing these girls. And they know that there were videotapes, because the girls, Virginia saw the whole camera setup, the monitors in the rooms. You know, she had Epstein say, the reason that we videotape all of these rooms is because we want to have things on people. So those things theoretically exist. And why they're not...
Let me ask you about that. Do they? Because I often wonder if they do exist, because while these places, these homes of his on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, down in Palm Beach, while those homes were 100% wired, and the raiding agents saw the detritus of that. I mean, wires coming out of the wall, hard drives and cameras all ripped out of there. He likely had some advance notice. Is it certain that the tapes exist, or is there a possibility that with the advance notice of ripping out all the hardware, he got rid of all the software and all of the videotape evidence as well before the agents were able to raid?
Well, my sense is that we know that the Palm Beach house had been cleaned out beforehand, but I don't know that the New York house was cleaned out beforehand, because they picked him up at Teterboro Airport and they blasted into that house with a battering ram at the same moment, and he was surprised. So he didn't know it was coming. Now, do I know exactly what's on the Epstein files? No, I do not. And had he maybe done a house cleaning and gotten rid of his trophy closet? Remember, this is a man who kept these things because he enjoyed them. So we describe in the book that there was a room in the Palm Beach house that was full of what can only be described as trophy photos. They were pictures of children, naked pictures of children, his collection of women and girls that he had abused. So if he thought he could get away with keeping them, he probably would keep them because, again, if those videotapes are there to be used for blackmail purposes, the only way you can use them is if they exist. If you destroy them, just to be careful, you can't use them against somebody. So again, do I know personally? No. I do not know what is in the Epstein files, but that's why we want to know. Tell us. Show it to us.
Yeah. I just thought once the heat was on him, once the heat was on him in Florida and he got his sweetheart deal, I would have thought he wouldn't want to spend another minute behind bars and he'd get rid of anything as delightful to him as it might have been. It could lock him up for good and that he might have gotten rid of that stuff. Can I ask you this?
Remember, he continues to abuse girls for years after that. In that Manhattan townhouse.
I know. It's confounding to me. It's confounding. I mean, I think we're all on the same page there. So with regard to Virginia's deals, like when she signed a non-disclosure agreement with Prince Andrew and with Ghislaine Maxwell, the terms can be so vastly different. Did the terms of the NDA extend to her estate and to the survivors of her untimely death?
My understanding, and I would have to, my understanding is the NDA for the Prince Andrew settlement, when she accused him of raping and battering her, Prince Andrew pays her a sum of money, and I don't know what it is. She was never allowed to say. She was under a 1-year NDA to not discuss it for 1 year. And that was more than a year ago. So there's no problem there. Ghislaine Maxwell, there was an NDA about the amount. Ghislaine Maxwell settled with her when Virginia accused her of defaming Virginia by calling her a liar, which she did. And she won a settlement from Ghislaine Maxwell, period. That's public. We just don't know how much.
My curiosity about that is if she were alive and decided to blow the whistle and say everything that she wanted to say about someone like Prince Andrew or anybody else, then they would have recourse and they would either reclaim the settlement money, sue again, but she's no longer alive. That's why I'm curious about any kind of recourse that any of these people would have if she decided to open the floodgates and just tell all.
Well, this is such a triple hypothetical. She can't open the floodgates and tell all. She's not alive. She chose
but
very
carefully. That's why I'm asking the book and the manuscript and the raw manuscript and the tapes. Yeah, whatever is edited out of the book. That's what I'm curious about. What still exists that isn't in the book?
Yeah, the book stands on its own, and I stand by it. We were very careful about being accurate, and that was important to Virginia. There's a lot of corroborating reporting that goes into this, and also careful in the sense that if there was any agreement that she had made, whether it had expired in the case of Prince Andrew, the year had gone by, or whether it was about the amounts, and we didn't include the amounts. I don't even know the amounts of those settlements. I guess what I would say to you is that I am really kind of fed up with this idea that the victims have to carry the heaviest burden of always naming and renaming and renaming and renaming.
Oh, I'm with you. Amy, I'm with you. I just feel like we're not getting satisfaction from the government, and Virginia could have done this with no recourse to herself. Why wouldn't she have done it?
I believe there would have been recourse to her. And I think you...
How?
Threat of death?
I'm saying she's now dead. She's now not alive. There's no recourse. There's nothing they can do to her now. Why wouldn't she just open the floodgates? I'm telling you that it is the fault of the government for not doing it, but in their absence, what did she have to lose by releasing that memoir posthumously with every bit of information, including names in it?
Here's the thing. We approved the book as it's written in October. She was alive. She approved the final manuscript. She approved the cover image, the title, all of it, as a writer is allowed to do. And we locked that book. And then in April, she died. There is nothing that I can do to that book after she approved it to change it. That would be me putting my desires or wishes, or I would be then being her voice, and I'm not her voice. I'm doing what she had decided to do for the sake of her family. Remember, this woman has 3 children. She has had death threats. She didn't want to risk the safety of her family. And I don't think that goes away just because she happens to no longer be with us, which is a very sad thing. But they still are around. And these people were vicious. I mean, we've just seen in the past week these back and forth emails between Prince Andrew and Epstein trying to figure out how they could, erode and do away with Virginia's credibility, go after her, accuse her of having a criminal record, which, by the way, she did not have. And we have scenes in the book of Ghislaine and Epstein going back and forth about how they're going to tear her down. Maybe we can offer people money and they can badmouth her. Let's bribe them. Mm-hmm. So you get the picture. Like, she knew of his stake. Yeah. This wasn't hypothetical to her. And so once she decides those things, I'm not going to go against that, and neither is the publisher, out of respect for her. I think the pressure should be applied.
I have a question for you.
To people
that makes sense. That makes sense. But I wonder if, when each of these people eventually dies, the ones who haven't died already, right? But when each of these people who you know about, because she named names to you, when they die, will we then learn the names? Because once again, in death, the law says you can't be defamed in defamation, therefore there can't be a case against the person who reveals the identity of that person as an abuser. Is that going to happen upon the deaths of each of these men? I'm assuming some, possibly women as well, but mostly men abusers. Will we learn their names because at that point there's no more risk?
I don't think you need to wait for them to die. I think you need to be putting the pressure you're putting on me in this book, and Virginia posthumously, on the government. They have the names, and they've had them for more than a decade.
If they continue to be obstinate, if the government continues to be as obstinate as it has been for the last 20 years, will you or publishers or anybody else associated with the project, upon the death of those people who are perpetrators, name them?
I am a hired gun. I am a hired writer. This is not my book.
But you have the info. I know, but you have the info. She told you these things. She reported them to you.
Absolutely. And I've said that in every interview because I want people to know.
And you have the tapes.
I guess I absolutely have the tapes. They're not anywhere.
Would you release them if those perpetrators die?
Anywhere someone could steal them, by the way. They're safe.
I love that you said that the tapes are locked in a very safe place. Are you able to say anything more about that?
No, but just nobody can find them, so don't break into my house.
They're in a safe place that no one will be able to sleuth.
No, no one will be able to find them. But this isn't, I feel like this interview is focusing in the wrong place. And I'll tell you why. The point of this book for Virginia was to help other survivors. And there are, you can't walk down the street without encountering half the people you see have been abused. They just don't tell you about it. So she wanted to help people who had been sexually traumatized over their lifetimes to feel less alone. That was her main goal with this book. It was not a list of names. She has already listed the names, and if you went into any database of any newspaper, you could find them all. So to continue to say, well, why don't you say it again? Why don't you say it again? Is it's fatuous. It's like the names are out there and they're in the Epstein files. So if you want the names, go there. Get a different person on here to interview and go there. But if you want to understand what the experience is of being sexually abused and then having to come out of that and try to make a life, that's what she wanted to reach people with in this book. She wanted people who were trauma survivors, PTSD survivors, to know they were not alone. She wanted to say, I see you, I am you, and I feel what you feel. And I'm going to show you, warts and all, how hard my life is as a result. She could have left all of that out. She could have made it sound like it was awesome. She won, zillions of dollars, and I don't know the totals, from these settlements. Her life was rich and full. But instead, she decides to be very vulnerable in the book and say, I still struggle, because she never wanted to make anybody who had ever had that experience feel that they were less than because they still struggled. Being sexually abused, particularly as a young person, is something that damages you forever. And her biggest accomplishment, aside from naming names, aside from holding these people to account, is that she managed to have an open heart and want to make the world a better place for all of us, not just for her, for our kids, not just for her kids. She did that. She's an American hero. And the focus on what's missing in the book, I think, is wrong-headed. What's in the book is a portrait of somebody who was beaten down and rose right back up. And she kept on rising, and yes, she had a terrible, tragic end. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she did so much good for the world, for all of us, making us think about misogyny, making us think about the fetishization of young girls, which continues, is alive and well. It did not die with Jeffrey Epstein. Those are the things that she needs to be remembered for. And I'm not going to quibble about what name is or is not in there. It's the names are out there, and people can find them.
I respect what you're saying, and it is a laudable mission that she carried out with this book to help survivors and quote unquote write the predator's playbook to warn others. I think the only reason I am pressing for that is because there are so many people who are desperate for these Epstein files so that men and women, if there are, will be held accountable who are not currently being held accountable. So forgive me if it felt like an interrogation. I'm only just being the voice of viewers who are so frustrated with the government that will not hold these people accountable, and hoping for anybody else, survivors who went to Capitol Hill and Virginia Giuffre alike, to do what the government won't do. But I appreciate you coming on and talking to me about this. Thank you so much, Amy.
Of course. And I appreciate you shedding light on these issues. I don't mind the hard questions. I just think that the focus too often is on putting the impetus on the weakest among us who've already been hurt. And the time now is to put the focus on the stronger among us who have not been doing their jobs.
Well, amen to that. We both have the same mission. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.